After I refused to give my inheritance to my mother, she invited me to a family meeting. When I arrived, I'm Sarah. I'm 28 years old, and last month my grandfather left his entire fortune of over $3 million to me. The day after the funeral, my mother Linda demanded that I transfer everything to her. When I refused, hell broke loose. This morning, I received a message about an urgent family meeting. Upon entering my childhood home, I froze. My mother, my siblings, stepfather, and two men in expensive suits were staring at me. "Sarah," said my mother with a cold smile, "meet our consultants." I wasn't prepared for what happened next. My grandfather Robert wasn't just family. He was my hero. While most children had pop star posters on their walls, I had a framed photo of my grandfather proudly standing in front of his first hardware store. He built his business from nothing, starting with a small loan and transforming it into a network of 15 stores throughout the state of Texas. "Nothing worth having is easy, Sarah," he would tell me, his voice always carrying that perfect mixture of tenderness and wisdom. My mother Linda, on the other hand, never understood the value of hard work. As grandfather's only daughter, she grew up expecting everything to be handed to her on a silver platter. Even as a child, I noticed how she would roll her eyes whenever he talked about building character through adversity. My earliest memories include her explosive shopping sessions, the living room overflowing with bags bearing designer logos, followed by whispered discussions between her and my grandfather about money. When I was 12 years old, our family finances were a disaster. Mom changed credit cards like changing clothes, exhausting one before moving on to the next. My stepfather Kevin allowed her, partly because he benefited from her spending, and partly because confronting her led to explosive fights. They refinanced our house twice before I finished high school. Meanwhile, Grandpa paid special attention to me. He noticed how I would stay in his office during family meetings, fascinated by the account books and business reports scattered across the table. When I was 13, he started taking me to his main store on Saturdays. "You have a good head for business. Girl," he said one afternoon while I helped him review inventory reports. "You notice things others don't see." Those Saturdays became sacred. He taught me how to analyze profit margins, negotiate with suppliers, and most importantly, how to treat employees with respect. "Your business is only as good as the people who run it when you're not there," he used to say. When college time came, Grandpa offered to pay my tuition in full, but my mother intercepted. Suddenly, she was calling him daily, complaining about my sister Emma's medical bills and my brother Tyler's needs. The money for my education mysteriously became family funds. Instead, I took student loans and worked part-time at a local bookstore. Grandpa would visit me there, pretending to browse the business section while slipping me envelopes of money. "Don't tell your mother," he would whisper. "This is between us." As his health began to decline, our conversations became more serious. I was 26 when he was diagnosed with congestive heart failure. During a hospital visit, he squeezed my hand with surprising strength. "I've watched how you handle money, Sarah," he said. "You're the only one in this family who understands its value." "Linda," he sighed heavily. "Your mother never understood that money isn't just for spending. It's responsibility. It's security. It's opportunity." He looked at me with intense clarity. "I've made arrangements. You'll be taken care of. When the time comes, there will be pressure. Maintaining your position won't be easy." In his final months, he shared stories about my mother's teenage years, how she would steal from his wallet, forge his signature on checks, and once emptied a savings account he had created for her. "I failed her somehow," he confessed during our last real conversation. "I gave too much, perhaps, or too little of what really mattered." He squeezed my hand. "But you, Sarah, you became perfect." A week later, he fell into a coma. 3 days after, surrounded by family, Robert James Mitchell drew his last breath. I felt a part of me leave with him. The reading of the will took place 2 weeks after the funeral. We gathered in Mr. Harrison's office, a wood-paneled room that smelled of leather and old books. My mother arrived dressed in designer black, her eyes hidden behind large sunglasses. Emma and Tyler sat on either side of her, with Kevin hovering protectively behind them. I sat alone on the other side of the table. Mr. Harrison began reading. The first few minutes covered small bequests, charitable donations, a generous pension for his longtime housekeeper. Nothing surprising. Then came the bombshell. "And to my granddaughter, Sarah Nicole Mitchell, I leave the remainder of my estate, including my business holdings, investment portfolios, real estate properties, and personal effects." The silence that followed was deafening. I sat frozen, the magnitude of what had just happened hitting me in waves. Then my mother ripped off her sunglasses. "This is a mistake," she hissed. "Read it again." "There is no mistake, Mrs. Walker. Your father was very specific in his instructions. This is impossible. I'm his daughter, his only daughter. Mom, please, I whispered. Don't you mom me, she retorted. You knew this, didn't you? You manipulated him when he was sick and vulnerable. Emma chimed in, her voice trembling. Grandpa wouldn't do this to us. He loved us equally. Tyler remained silent, staring at his hands. Mr. Mitchell was in full possession of his faculties when he updated his will 8 months ago. He was very clear about his wishes. My mother's face twisted with anger. 8 months ago? When he was already sick. That proves it was manipulation. The meeting dissolved into chaos. My mother threatened to contest the will. Kevin made comments about family loyalty. Emma sobbed dramatically. In the parking lot afterward, my mother cornered me against my car. This is a simple solution, Sarah, she said, her voice suddenly calm. Just transfer everything to me and I'll make sure everyone gets their fair share. I need time to process this, Mom. What's there to process? It's family money. It belongs to all of us. That's not what Grandpa wanted. Her expression hardened. You have no idea what he wanted. I was his daughter for 54 years. You were just a distraction in his old age. I won't make decisions now. Don't be selfish, Sarah. Your brother needs money for college. Emma is drowning in debt. Kevin and I are behind on the mortgage again. The following days brought a flood of calls and messages. Emma called me a greedy bitch in a family chat. Kevin left voicemails about doing the right thing. My mother's friends sent messages expressing their disappointment in my character. Tyler was the only one who approached me differently. He showed up at my apartment 3 days after the will reading. I don't care about the money, he said quietly. But Mom is furious. I've never seen her like this. I just wanted to warn you. She's not going to let this go. A week later, my mother organized a family dinner. The moment I arrived, she launched into a prepared speech about family unity. Your grandfather built his business for all of us, she insisted. He never intended for one person to control everything. Then why did he write the will that way? Because you manipulated him, Emma shot back. We all know you were his favorite. Then prove it, my mother said. Sign the money over to me and I'll distribute it fairly. I can't do that. I promised Grandpa I would respect his wishes. His wishes were for the family to be taken care of, my mother shouted. And I intend to honor that, just not in the way you're demanding. The following weeks were some of the most difficult of my life. What started as direct confrontation evolved into a coordinated campaign to break me emotionally. Aunts I barely spoke to called to say how disappointed they were. Cousins sent messages asking why I hated the family. Family takes care of family became my mother's mantra, repeated in daily voicemail messages when I stopped answering her calls. The pressure came from unexpected directions. My mother got information from my work colleagues and started calling my office. My boss called me into her office after the 3rd day of these interruptions. Sarah, is everything okay at home? She asked. Take some personal days if you need to, she offered, and tell reception not to put your mother's calls through anymore. My suspicions grew, so I asked Mr. Harrison for records of my grandfather's financial support to my mother over the years. What I discovered was staggering. In the 5 years before his death, Grandpa had given my mother over $400,000, supposedly for house payments, medical bills, and educational costs. Your grandfather was very generous with your mother, Mr. Harrison observed diplomatically. Some would say, excessively so. That night, I received the most disturbing call from Kevin, his words slurred by alcohol. You think you're so smart, he growled. Your mother is having panic attacks because of you. Your mother deserves that money. She had plans for it. What plans? The house in Hilton Head, for starters. We put down a deposit 6 months ago when the old man's doctor gave us the timeline. I felt physically sick. You were spending his money before he was even dead? It was going to be ours anyway, he mumbled, until you got involved. Marcus found me curled up on the couch in the dark. My boyfriend had used his emergency key after I missed our dinner date. Talk to me, he said. Everything. I poured it all out. The inheritance. The pressure. Kevin's threatening call. Maybe I should just give them what they want, I concluded. Sarah, this isn't just about money anymore, he said gently. This is emotional abuse. Your grandfather knew this would happen. He was preparing you for it. Marcus helped me schedule an appointment with Jennifer Walsh, a lawyer who specialized in inheritance disputes. Your mother might be planning something more aggressive than just guilt trips, Jennifer said. The inheritance is significant enough that she could take formal action. She could allege undue influence, suggesting you manipulated your grandfather. Following Jennifer's advice, I started recording calls and saving all messages. I installed security cameras in my apartment after finding my mother's car parked outside one night. Your grandfather saw something in you, Marcus reminded me. The strength to handle this. Trust his judgment. 3 weeks after the will reading, I received a message from my mother. Family meeting tomorrow at 3. Time to resolve this situation once and for all. Be there. Bring your ID and banking information. We'll need it for the paperwork. The trap was set. But this time, I wouldn't be the only prey. The next day dawned clear, almost mockingly cheerful for the confrontation I knew was coming. I dressed in a navy blazer, professional and composed, channeling my grandfather's business posture. Jennifer called while I was getting ready. Remember, stay calm no matter what they say. I'll be parked on the street. My mother's house looked deceptively normal when I parked in the driveway at 3 o'clock sharp. The curtains were drawn, unusual for the afternoon. I took a deep breath, grabbed my briefcase containing the documents I had gathered. The door opened before I knocked, revealing my mother's perfect hostess smile, the one that never reached her eyes. Sarah, punctual as always. Her voice was sweet as honey, another warning sign. She was wearing a designer dress I'd never seen, hair freshly colored. Everyone's waiting in the living room. The atmosphere inside was suffocating. Emma and Tyler sat rigidly on the couch, neither looking me in the eye. Kevin stood by the fireplace, arms crossed, watching me with hostility. But what confirmed my suspicions were the two strangers, middle-aged men in expensive suits, sitting in the armchairs. Sarah, my mother gestured grandly. Meet Mr. Wilson and Mr. Daniels. They're helping us resolve this unfortunate situation. I nodded politely but didn't offer my hand. I wasn't informed this would involve lawyers. Not exactly lawyers, my mother corrected smoothly. Just consultants to help with the paperwork. The only available chair was a straight-backed one positioned to face everyone else. An interrogation setup. I accepted it without comment, placing my briefcase on my lap. Would you like coffee? No, thank you. I'd like to understand the purpose of this meeting. Mr. Wilson cleared his throat, leaning forward with rehearsed concern. Sarah, your family is very worried about the burden that's been placed on you. Managing a substantial estate is complex and stressful. I appreciate the concern, but I've been working in financial management for 7 years. I'm quite capable. Of course you are, dear, my mother interrupted with a condescending smile. But this is about family unity. Your grandfather would have wanted all of us to benefit. If that were true, he would have written his will differently. Emma spoke up, her voice trembling in what I recognized as her theatrical voice. Sarah, you know Grandpa wasn't thinking clearly at the end. The medication, the pain, he wasn't himself. He was lucid until the final week. The will was updated 6 months before that. Mr. Daniels opened a leather portfolio. We've prepared a simple solution that respects your grandfather's wishes while ensuring family harmony. My mother beamed with gratitude. They've been so helpful, Sarah. This way, everyone wins. What exactly are you proposing? A voluntary redistribution, Mr. Wilson explained, removing documents. You would transfer the business holdings and investment accounts to your mother as the most experienced family member, retaining a generous portion for yourself. Say 20%. I almost laughed. And the real estate properties? Those would be liquidated, with proceeds divided among all family members, Mr. Daniels continued. Your brother has approaching college expenses, and your sister has medical needs. I looked at Tyler, who squirmed uncomfortably. What medical needs does Emma have? That's private, my mother snapped, her facade cracking. Kevin stepped forward. Look, Sarah, we can do this the easy way or the hard way. These gentlemen have also prepared documents to contest the will if necessary. On what grounds? Undue influence, Mr. Wilson declared. Your grandfather was elderly and ill. You spent an unusual amount of time alone with him. A judge might find that concerning. The accusation heard exactly as intended. My mother pressed the advantage. No one wants a messy court battle, Sarah. Think about what that would do to Grandpa's reputation. I felt a momentary wave of doubt. The self-doubt must have shown on my face because my mother's expression became triumphant. We're just asking you to do the right thing, she continued. Mr. Wilson sliding a thick document across the table. Sign this today, and we can put this unfortunate situation behind us. Tyler finally spoke, his voice small. Please, Sarah. Mom says we could lose the house if this isn't resolved. The manipulation was so transparent, it restored my resolve. May I see the documents? Mr. Daniels passed them over with a satisfied smile. Take your time. It's a standard asset transfer. I accepted the papers, my expression neutral, while flipping through the first few pages. As I suspected, it was far from standard. It was a complete surrender of everything my grandfather had built. The room fell silent as I continued reading, tension mounting. My mother fidgeted with her new bracelet, another recent purchase, while Emma whispered something to Kevin. Finally, I closed the document and looked up. 5 pairs of eyes watched me expectantly. "Well," my mother prompted, "do you need a pen?" I smiled then. Not the anxious smile they expected, but my grandfather's smile, the one he used when closing an advantageous deal. Before making any decision, I said calmly, "I'd like to understand something. Mom, when did you put a deposit on the house in Hilton Head?" Her face visibly paled. "What are you talking about?" "Kevin mentioned it during our last call. He said you put down a deposit 6 months ago, when Grandpa's doctor gave him his timeline." Emma shot a furious look at Kevin. He cleared his throat embarrassedly. "I never said that. I recorded the call," I replied simply. "Just as I've documented every threat, every manipulation attempt, and every lie about financial hardships while you were buying luxury items. Mr. Wilson adjusted his tie nervously. "Miss Mitchell, family disputes can get emotional. Let's focus on the documents." "Yes, let's," I agreed, reaching for my briefcase. "I have some documents of my own." That's when my mother stood up abruptly. "This is ridiculous. You're trying to steal what should rightfully be mine." "Like you stole from Grandpa?" I asked quietly, opening my briefcase. "Never." January 15th of last year. You told Grandpa you needed $30,000 for Tyler's medical treatments. Tyler wasn't sick. The money went to your cruise and Kevin's golf club membership. I extracted the diary entry documenting this, along with a photo I'd found of my mother on that cruise. Posted on Instagram with the caption, "Best birthday gift ever." Mr. Wilson and Mr. Daniels exchanged uncomfortable glances. May 8th, you claimed Emma needed emergency dental surgery. Emma was in Cancun that weekend. She posted the photos herself. Emma had the dignity to look ashamed. I continued placing document after document, calmly exposing years of financial manipulation. Grandpa kept records of everything, Mom. Every lie, every manipulated loan, every broken promise of repayment. My mother's face had transformed from shock to fury. "How dare you? After everything I've done for you? Like using the money Grandpa gave for my college tuition on your spa retreats?" "That's in here too." The consultants now looked distinctly uncomfortable. Mr. Wilson leaned toward my mother, whispering urgently. She dismissed him. "You little ungrateful—" "I think," I interrupted calmly, "this meeting is over. Unless you want me to call my real lawyer, who's waiting outside." She's particularly interested in these gentlemen, who present themselves as legal consultants while pressuring me to sign documents under false pretenses. Mr. Daniels closed his briefcase hastily. "Mrs. Walker, you didn't mention any existing litigation." "There isn't any," I clarified. "Yet." The implied threat hung in the air. My mother's plan was crumbling, and the anger in her eyes was unlike anything I'd ever seen. "This isn't over," she hissed. "Actually, it is." I took their document and handed it back. "I won't sign this, or any variation of it. Grandpa made his wishes clear, and I intend to honor them. He was my father," she almost screamed. "Everything he built should have been mine." "That's exactly why it isn't," I replied softly. "He built to last, Mom, not to be wasted." When I turned to leave, Tyler suddenly stood up. "Sarah, wait." Everyone froze. Tyler had been the silent observer throughout this entire confrontation. "I'm sorry," he said, his voice stronger than I'd ever heard it. "I didn't know about any of this. The lies, the manipulation. I just thought—" He looked at our mother, pain evident in his expression. "I thought Sarah was being selfish. But that's not true, is it, Mom?" Linda's expression hardened. "Sit down, Tyler." "No." His hands were shaking, but his voice remained steady. "I don't want to be part of this." To everyone's shock, he crossed the room to stand beside me. "I'm leaving with Sarah." Kevin stepped forward threateningly. "You little ungrateful." "I'd be careful what you say next," I interrupted, holding up my phone. "This entire conversation is being recorded." That stopped him cold. The consultants were already heading for the door. I looked at my mother one last time, feeling an unexpected wave of pity beneath my anger. "Goodbye, Mom." With Tyler by my side, I walked out of the house that had once been my home, leaving behind the trap that had caught its own creators. As we left, the door slammed with such force that the porch light swayed. Jennifer was already getting out of her car, alerted by my text. "Are you both okay?" she asked, looking at Tyler uncertainly. "This is my brother," I explained. "He's coming with us." Jennifer Walsh, Sarah's attorney. She extended her hand professionally. The door opened again, revealing my mother, face twisted with rage. Tyler, get back in this house right now. Tyler stiffened beside me but didn't turn around. I can't, Mom. Not after what I heard. They're manipulating you, she screamed. Jennifer stepped forward. Mrs. Walker, I strongly advise you to go back inside. Any further harassment will be documented. Who the hell do you think you are? I'm Miss Mitchell's legal counsel, and unlike your consultants, I'm actually a licensed attorney. My mother looked at Tyler. And you? Don't bother coming back if you leave with her. Tyler visibly flinched but held his ground. Okay. Without another word, my mother retreated inside. 20 minutes later, we were sitting in a cafe several miles away. Tyler stared at his untouched coffee. I can't believe she just disowned me. Just like that. She's bluffing, I said, though I wasn't convinced. You didn't see how she was after the will reading when you weren't around. It was like she'd become obsessed. Jennifer interrupted. Tyler, did your mother discuss specific plans for the inheritance? He hesitated. She had a whole list. The Hilton Head house was just the beginning. She wanted to buy a stake in some exclusive club, get a boat, renovate the entire house. And my college tuition? I asked. Once. I asked specifically. She said you were smart enough to get scholarships and would probably try to take over Grandpa's business anyway. The casual cruelty of it stung. And your plans for college? She kept saying not to worry, that once she had control of the money, everything would be taken care of. A bitter laugh escaped him. I believed her. You weren't stupid, I assured him. You trusted your mother. Jennifer cleared her throat. We need to discuss next steps. The immediate crisis has been averted, but we should prepare for possible fallout. What do you recommend? First, file the letter and diary as supplemental documentation with the court. Second, consider a restraining order if harassment continues. A restraining order against my own mother? Only if necessary. But the recorded threats should be taken seriously. Tyler, you'll need somewhere safe to stay. I have nowhere to go. Yes, you do, I said without hesitation. You're staying with me. The relief on his face was immediate. Are you sure? Absolutely. Despite everything, you're still my little brother. Jennifer smiled. That's settled then. Now, Sarah, we should discuss your grandfather's estate. Have you thought about how you want to proceed? The question caught me off guard. I'd been so focused on defending my inheritance that I hadn't fully considered what I would actually do with it. Grandpa wanted me to continue his legacy, I said slowly. Not just preserve it, but build upon it. The hardware stores are still profitable, Jennifer observed, but they face growing competition from big chains. You might consider diversification. Tyler leaned forward, sudden interest replacing his dejection. Grandpa always talked about expanding into eco-friendly construction supplies. He said it was the future, but didn't have the energy to retool the business model. I looked at my brother with surprise. I didn't know you paid attention to his business conversations. He shrugged, a touch of embarrassment coloring his cheeks. I didn't understand most of it, but I liked hearing him get excited about ideas. Something clicked. Tyler, what are you planning to study in college? Business administration, he replied, with a focus on sustainable entrepreneurship. Why? I exchanged a glance with Jennifer, who seemed to read my thoughts and nodded slightly in approval. Because, I said, a plan forming as I spoke, I think Grandpa would like his legacy to include both of us. Tyler's eyes widened. What are you saying? I'm saying that while I won't sign the inheritance over to Mom, I want to share it in a way that honors Grandpa's values. I reached across the table, taking his hand. How would you feel about an internship at Mitchell's Hardware while you're in college? Learning the business from the ground up, like Grandpa taught me. Are you serious? Hope flickered across his face. Completely serious. And if you prove yourself, which I know you will, there could be a place for you in the company after graduation. But what about Emma? And Mom? He asked. I sighed. Emma made her choice. As for Mom, I won't enable her self-destructive financial habits, but I won't abandon her either. We can establish a modest fund with strict conditions. Jennifer nodded approvingly. A properly structured fund would prevent misuse while providing security. We could include educational provisions for Tyler and even Emma if she changes her mind. For the first time since this entire ordeal began, I felt a sense of clarity and purpose. This wasn't just about honoring my grandfather's wishes anymore. It was about carrying forward his values in a way that could heal our family, even if that healing took years. So what happens now? Tyler asked. Now, I replied with newfound confidence, we build something that would make Grandpa proud. The rest of the afternoon passed in a blur of practical arrangements. Jennifer helped Tyler create a list of personal items to retrieve from our mother's house, with police escort as a precaution. I called Marcus, who immediately offered to help Tyler settle into my apartment. The weeks following the confrontation marked the beginning of a new chapter. The initial fallout was predictably difficult. My mother launched a brief, furious campaign of messages alternating between vicious accusations and tearful pleas. When those failed, she turned to social media, posting attacks about ungrateful children and family betrayal. I maintained my public silence. She wants a reaction, Marcus reminded me when the pain became overwhelming. Don't give her that satisfaction. The hardware stores demanded immediate attention. Without Grandpa's steady hand, some managers had become complacent, and sales were beginning to decline. I took leave from my marketing job and immersed myself in business operations, visiting each location. Tyler accompanied me whenever his class schedule allowed, absorbing knowledge with an enthusiasm that reminded me of myself at his age. Watching him interact with employees, ask insightful questions about inventory management, I saw glimpses of our grandfather. You have a natural talent for this, I told him after a productive meeting with suppliers. I just remember things Grandpa said. It helps me know what questions to ask. That's exactly what makes you good at this. 3 weeks after the confrontation, Emma reached out unexpectedly. She asked to meet at a cafe, neutral territory. I arrived first, securing a corner table where I could watch the door. Still cautious after everything that had happened, she entered hesitantly, looking smaller without our mother's dominating presence beside her. The designer clothes remained, but something in her demeanor had changed. "Thank you for coming," she said, sliding into the seat across from me. "I wasn't sure you would. I was surprised you called." She fidgeted with the napkin, avoiding my eyes. "Mom doesn't know I'm here. She'd be furious." "How is she?" "Angry, hurt, drinking more than usual." Emma finally looked up. "She's selling the house, says she can't afford the mortgage anymore." I'd expected to feel vindicated. Instead, I felt a complicated sadness. "Where is she going?" "Kevin's sister has a rental property. It's smaller, but nice." She hesitated. "Tyler's room is still untouched. I think she's hoping he'll come back." "Has she reached out to him?" Emma shook her head. "Her pride won't let her." She took a deep breath. "I owe you an apology, Sarah. I said terrible things. I believed Mom when she said you'd manipulated Grandpa. You were protecting her. I understand loyalty. It wasn't just loyalty." Her voice dropped. "I was jealous. You were always Grandpa's favorite, and I resented that. When the will was read, it felt like final confirmation that you didn't matter. But these past weeks, watching Mom spiral, seeing how she's handling things, I've been thinking about why Grandpa made the choice he did. And now I understand." This admission left me momentarily speechless. "I'm not asking for money," Emma clarified quickly. I miss my sister. And I miss Tyler. Mom is determined to cut you both off forever. But I can't do that." I reached across the table. After hesitation, she took it. "Family is complicated," I said. "But it doesn't have to be all or nothing." This meeting marked the beginning of a careful reconciliation with Emma. We agreed to keep our contact private for now, protecting her from our mother's wrath while leaving the door open for eventual healing. The legal aspects of the inheritance were finally resolving. Jennifer helped me establish 3 separate funds: an educational fund for Tyler, a modest monthly stipend for my mother — I couldn't bring myself to cut her off completely — and a charitable foundation in my grandfather's name, focused on entrepreneurial education for disadvantaged youth. The foundation in particular would have pleased him. Throughout his life, he had mentored young people with business aspirations but limited resources, offering jobs, advice, and financial support. Formalizing this support felt like the perfect tribute. 6 months after Grandpa's death, I finally moved into his house. It was a practical decision. My apartment was too small for Tyler and me long-term. I kept most rooms as they were, but we converted his office into a shared workspace. We hung his portrait above the fireplace. The business began to thrive under our combined attention. Tyler's research into eco-friendly construction materials opened new market opportunities, while my marketing background helped position Mitchell's Hardware as the progressive alternative to impersonal chains. We began a modest expansion, opening a specialized showroom that attracted younger homeowners and environmentally conscious contractors. A year after the confrontation, I received an unexpected email from my mother. The subject line read, "Truce." The message was brief. "Sarah, I've spent a year being angry. It hasn't changed anything except make me more bitter. Emma tells me the business is doing well. She says Tyler is thriving in college. I miss my children. If you're willing, I'd like to talk. No lawyers, no demands. Just talk. Mom." After discussing with Tyler, Emma, and Marcus, I agreed to meet her at a restaurant. She arrived punctually, looking older, but more composed than during our last encounter. The designer clothes had disappeared, replaced by a simple blouse. Her expression when she saw me was cautious, but not hostile. "Thank you for coming," she said. "How are you, Mom?" "Getting by. The rental is actually nice, less to clean. Kevin and I are taking time apart." That was news. "I'm sorry to hear that," she shrugged. "It's been coming for a while. Your grandfather used to say Kevin brought out the worst in me. I'm starting to think he was right about that, too." The acknowledgement that Grandpa was right about anything money-related was surprising progress. "I'm seeing someone," she continued, eyes fixed on her water glass. "A therapist. Emma's idea. It's helping me understand some things about myself, about why I always felt so empty, no matter how much I acquired." Our conversation that day wasn't a magical reconciliation. Years of dysfunctional patterns couldn't be undone in a single lunch, but it was a beginning. She asked thoughtful questions about the business, listened when I explained about the foundation, and seemed genuinely pleased when I showed photos of Tyler's Dean's List certificate. Before we parted, she said something that stayed with me. "Robert would be proud of you, Sarah. Not because of what you did with the money, but because of who you became despite how difficult I made it." It was the most honest thing she'd ever said to me. The path to family healing remains long and uncertain. Some days bring progress, others trigger old patterns. My mother and I maintain careful boundaries, but the open hostility has faded. She even attended the grand opening of our newest store, staying quietly in the back during my speech, but remaining for cake afterward. Tyler graduates next year, ready to assume a full-time role in the company. Emma, inspired by the foundation's work, started volunteering at a women's shelter and talked about returning to school for social work. And Marcus, well, the ring he put on my finger last month suggests we'll be building our future together. As for me, I've finally made peace with my grandfather's choice. The inheritance wasn't just about money or business acumen. It was about values, about building instead of consuming, about using resources to create something meaningful that survives us. In the final entry of the diary, Grandpa wrote that he believed I had what my mother never developed: strength of character. For a long time, that seemed like too heavy a compliment to accept. Now I understand it wasn't a compliment, but recognition of something he had observed over years of watching me grow and make difficult choices. Standing up to family pressure was the hardest thing I'd ever done. But through that painful process, I discovered my own capacity for both firmness and compassion, for honoring the past while building something new. That's the real inheritance, not the money or the business, but the understanding that true wealth lies in what we create, what we share, and what we leave for others. If you're facing a similar family conflict over money or inheritance, remember that holding your ground doesn't mean closing your heart. Boundaries aren't walls. They're bridges that allow healthy relationships. Today, when I look out the window of the office I share with Tyler, I see not just the empire my grandfather built, but the future we're creating together. Tyler is working on a business plan for a new line of sustainable products. His passion reminds me of Grandpa himself. On the wall, Grandpa's portrait watches with those kind eyes. And in the corner of the desk, in a simple frame, is the last page of his diary with that note in the margin. "The true measure of wealth isn't what you have, but what you do with it. Make it count, Sarah." Every day I strive to honor those words. It's not always easy, and I don't always get it right, but I know I'm building something that will last, something that would make my grandfather smile with pride. The money my grandfather left me was significant, but the real gift was the opportunity to discover who I really was when tested. He saw in me a strength I didn't even know I possessed. And by entrusting me with his legacy, he gave me the chance to become the person he believed I could be. The inheritance I received wasn't just financial. It was a lesson about integrity, about making difficult decisions, about the difference between being generous and being used. It was about learning that sometimes loving someone means not giving them what they want, but helping them become who they're capable of being. My grandfather gave me more than money. He gave me an example of how to live with purpose, how to build something lasting, and how to stay true to your values even when it's difficult. That's a legacy I hope to pass forward. In the end, I discovered that true inheritance isn't about what you receive. It's about what you become in the process of earning it. Robert James Mitchell gave me more than a fortune. He gave me the opportunity to discover my own strength, and that's a gift no amount of money can buy. I wore the joke bikini my friend got me. So last summer, I was getting ready for the school party at my friend Jess's house. Like 40 people were going to be there from our high school. And I was super nervous because my ex would be there with his new girlfriend. Jess had given me this bikini a week before as a joke gift for my birthday. It was this tiny, bright neon green string thing that barely covered anything. The top was basically 2 triangles, and the bottoms were like dental floss. She said she found it at some sketchy online store and thought it would be funny. I tried it on, and honestly, it looked amazing on me. Way better than my usual boring black one piece. But it was definitely meant to be a gag gift. The size was somehow perfect, though. Like it fit me better than any swimsuit I'd ever owned. I kept staring at myself in the mirror thinking maybe I should just wear it for real. The day of the party, I'm standing in my room holding both suits. My safe black one piece that made me look like a mom, or the neon green string situation that made me look like I belonged in a music video. I kept thinking about how my ex Tyler dumped me 3 months ago, saying I was too conservative and boring in bed. His new girlfriend Madison was this wild party girl who posted thirst traps every day. So I said screw it and put on the green bikini. I threw a cover-up over it and drove to Jess's house. When I got there, the party was already going strong. Music was blasting, people were jumping in the pool, and I could smell the barbecue from the backyard. I found Jess by the snack table, and she nearly choked on her drink when she saw me. She was like, "Oh my God, you actually wore it," and started laughing. I told her I wanted to try something different. She said I looked incredible, but also I looked like a kid. When I took off my cover-up, I felt like the entire world had stopped. The neon green bikini seemed to glow under the party lights, and I could feel all eyes turning toward me like magnets. It was a strange sensation, but addictive. For the first time in my life, I felt powerful. I walked to the pool's edge with a confidence I didn't even know I had. Each step was calculated, each movement purposeful. I could feel the whispers around me, conversations stopping mid-sentence, phones being discreetly raised. And in the middle of it all, I felt that familiar gaze burning into me, Tyler. He was on the other side of the pool with Madison clinging to his arm, but his eyes were fixed on me. His mouth was slightly open, and I could see he had completely forgotten about his girlfriend beside him. Madison was saying something in his ear, but he wasn't paying attention. He was hypnotized. I smiled to myself and dove headfirst into the pool. The water was warm and perfect, and when I emerged, shaking my wet hair, I heard some whistles and shouts of approval. My hair was stuck to my back, water dripping down my body, and the bikini. Well, it was doing exactly what it was supposed to do. "Damn, who is that?" I heard someone ask. "That's Tyler's ex," I heard the response. "Seriously? He's crazy for letting that go." I pretended not to be listening, but each word was like honey to my ears. I swam to the pool's edge and got out slowly, letting the water drip down my body. I grabbed a towel that was on one of the chairs and started drying myself, still pretending I hadn't noticed Tyler staring at me. Marcus, a guy from the basketball team who had always been sweet to me but whom I'd never paid attention to because I was with Tyler, appeared out of nowhere with 2 drinks in his hands. "Brought this for you," he said, handing me a cup with a beautiful smile. "Thanks, Marcus. You're an angel," I replied, lightly touching his arm. The drink was sweet and refreshing, and I drank slowly, savoring each sip. Marcus started talking to me about the party, about how beautiful I looked, about how he'd never seen me like this, and I responded with smiles and laughter, feeling more and more confident. That's when I felt a presence behind me. I didn't need to turn around to know who it was. His cologne, that same cologne I used to love, reached me before he even spoke. "Hi," Tyler said, appearing beside me. "Hi," I replied, without taking my eyes off Marcus. "How are you?" he asked, and I could feel the nervousness in his voice. "I'm great, thanks," I replied dryly, finally turning to him. His eyes quickly traveled over my body before meeting mine. "You look different." "Different how?" I asked, tilting my head to the side. "You know how?" he said, his voice a little lower. Marcus was standing beside me, clearly uncomfortable with the situation. "I'm going to get more drinks," he said. "Do you want anything else?" "Yes, I do," I replied, giving him a huge smile. "Anything sweet." He smiled back and walked away. Tyler stood there, clearly irritated by the interruption. "New boyfriend?" he asked, trying to sound casual. "Why do you want to know?" I shot back. "Just curious." "Oh, I see. The same curiosity you had when you cheated on me with Madison?" Tyler swallowed hard. "I never cheated on you." "Of course you did. It may not have been physical, but you were already with her in your head long before you broke up with me." He didn't respond, because he knew it was true. Instead, he kept staring at me with that look I knew well, the look of when he wanted something. "You look incredible," he finally said. "Thanks," I replied, without giving it more importance. Seriously, that bikini. You never wore anything like that with me. Maybe because you never gave me reasons to feel beautiful enough to wear it. The phrase came out harsher than I expected, and I saw it hit right on target. Tyler was speechless for a moment. I always thought you were beautiful, he said. No, Tyler, you thought I was safe. There's a difference. Marcus came back with my drink, and I thanked him with a kiss on his cheek. I saw Tyler's face darken when I did that. Thanks. You're a sweetheart, I said to Marcus, running my hand down his arm. Don't mention it, Marcus replied, clearly pleased with the attention. Tyler stood there, watching our interaction with an increasingly irritated expression. It was exactly the reaction I wanted. Come on, let's dance, I said to Marcus, taking his hand. Sure, he replied, following me. As we walked away, I could feel Tyler's eyes glued to me, and for the first time in months, I felt in control. The music was loud and contagious, and I started dancing in a way I had never danced before. My hips moved to the rhythm of the music, my arms rose above my head, and I could feel all the male gazes at the party fixed on me. It was an intoxicating sensation. Marcus danced with me, clearly impressed with this new version of me. His hands sometimes touched my waist, and I let them. Sometimes our bodies got close during the dance, and I didn't pull away. All of this with Tyler watching from afar, with an increasingly desperate expression. Other guys started approaching, wanting to dance with me too. Jake, who was on the football team, David, who was one of the most popular guys at school, and even the substitute PE teacher, who shouldn't have been there but whom Jess had invited because she thought he was cute. I danced with everyone, laughed with everyone, flirted with everyone, and Tyler remained there, standing, watching everything with a mixture of desire and anger I had never seen in him before. At one point, when the music became slower, Marcus pulled me close and we started dancing close together. His hands were on my waist, and I could feel the warmth of his body against mine. It was nice, it was exciting, and it was exactly what I needed to forget Tyler. But even so, I couldn't stop looking at the corner where he was, and every time our eyes met, I saw that he was dying of jealousy. It was better than any revenge I could have planned. The night was just beginning, and I already knew it would be unforgettable. Not just for me, but especially for Tyler. He was going to regret forever having left me, and I was going to make sure of that. The party was getting more and more lively, and I was feeling like the protagonist of a movie. Every movement of mine was observed, every laugh of mine echoed through the house, and I loved this feeling of being the center of attention. Tyler couldn't stay still. He kept circulating around the party, always finding an excuse to pass by me. He'd go get drinks at the table next to the pool, go greet friends who were in my group, do anything that would justify his presence near me. Madison was clearly irritated. She tried to start conversations with him, held his arm, gave him little kisses on his cheek, but Tyler was clearly disconnected. His eyes always returned to me, and this was driving her crazy. Tyler, are you listening to me? I heard her ask, raising her voice. Of course I am, he replied, but without taking his eyes off me. I was sitting on the pool's edge, with my feet in the water, talking to a group of guys that had formed around me. Marcus was on my right side, Jake on the left, and 3 others were in front of me, all clearly interested in me. Have you always been like this? David asked, who was crouched in front of me. Like what? I asked, tilting my head. Like this, free, confident, sexy. I laughed softly. I've always been like this. It's just that some people didn't know how to recognize it. Lucky for us, then, Jake said, and everyone laughed. I could feel Tyler approaching. He was trying to be discreet, but it was obvious he was coming in our direction. I decided to turn up the heat of the situation. Do you guys want to see something? I asked the group, with a mischievous smile. Sure, they replied in chorus. I got up and went to the speaker. I changed the music to something more sensual and came back near the pool. I started dancing alone, moving my body provocatively, feeling the music run through my veins. The guys around me were hypnotized. Some started recording with their phones, others just watched with their mouths open. I felt like a goddess, powerful and irresistible. That's when I felt a hand on my arm. I turned and saw Tyler, with a serious expression. Can we talk? He asked. I'm busy, I replied, continuing to dance. Please, he insisted. Say it here, I said, stopping dancing but not moving away from the group. Tyler looked around, clearly uncomfortable with the audience. Alone, he said. No, I replied firmly. Here is fine. Say what you have to say. He swallowed hard. I think I made a mistake. What kind of mistake? I asked, playing dumb. Breaking up with you. An awkward silence settled around us. The guys who were with me exchanged glances, and I could feel that everyone was paying attention to our conversation. Oh, really? I asked, crossing my arms. Yes, you're incredible. Different. Sexy. I never saw you like this. Funny, I said, smiling coldly. I didn't change anything. I've always been like this. You were just too blind to notice. Then why were you never like this with me? He asked, and I could hear the desperation in his voice. Because you didn't deserve it, I replied, without hesitation. The answer caught him off guard. He stood there, processing what I had said. You made me feel like I wasn't enough, I continued, that I was boring, conservative, dull. You destroyed my self-esteem and then left me because I wasn't interesting enough. I never said that. He tried to defend himself. You didn't need to say it. Your actions spoke for you. The guys around me were watching everything like it was a movie. Some seemed impressed with how I was handling the situation. But now you're being yourself, Tyler said. Exactly. And do you know why? Because you're not here anymore to make me feel small. At that moment, Madison appeared furious. Seriously, Tyler? You're going to stand there humiliating yourself and me because of her? Tyler didn't even look at Madison. His eyes were fixed on me. She's right, Marcus said, standing up. You lost your chance, man. Nobody asked you, Tyler shot back, irritated. You don't need to ask, Marcus replied, standing protectively in front of me. Anyone with eyes can see you didn't know what you had. And now she's not yours anymore, Jake added, positioning himself on my other side. Tyler looked around and saw he was surrounded by guys who were clearly on my side. The situation was getting tense. Let's go, Tyler, Madison said, pulling him by the arm. You're making a fool of yourself. No, Tyler said, breaking free from her. I'm not leaving. Then I am, Madison retorted. You choose. Either you come with me now or it's over between us. Tyler looked at her, then at me, then at her again. I could see his internal conflict, the struggle between pride and desire. I'm staying, he finally said. Madison was shocked. You can't be serious. I'm serious, Tyler confirmed without taking his eyes off me. Then that's it, Madison screamed. You're pathetic. Tyler, running after an ex who clearly doesn't want you. She left stomping, and I could hear her cursing as she walked away. Tyler stood there, as if he had just realized what he had done. I hope it was worth it, I said to him, turning around and going back to my group of admirers. But deep down, I knew I had just won the first battle. Tyler had chosen to stay because of me, had lost his girlfriend because of me, and the night was just beginning. What a show, Marcus whispered in my ear. It's not over yet, I replied, smiling, and I was right. The best was yet to come. With Madison out of the picture, Tyler was completely loose. He didn't know what to do with himself anymore, wandering around the party like a ghost, always trying to get close to me but without the courage to get too close after what had happened. I, on the other hand, was having more fun than ever. Without the pressure of having to compete with Madison, I could focus on enjoying the night and making Tyler regret even more the decision he had made. The party was at its peak. The music was loud, people were excited, and I was at the center of everything. I decided it was time to raise the level of provocation. Do you guys want to play truth or dare? I asked the group around me. Sure, they replied in chorus. We sat in a circle near the pool. There were about 10 of us. Me, Marcus, Jake, David, some other guys, and some girls who had joined the group. Tyler was a few meters away, pretending to talk to other friends, but I knew he was paying attention to everything. I'll start, I said, grabbing an empty bottle that was on the ground. Truth or dare? I asked Marcus when the bottle stopped on him. Dare, he replied without hesitation. I dare you to kiss me, I said, surprising everyone. Marcus didn't need to be convinced twice. He leaned toward me and kissed me. It was a good kiss, full of desire, and I gave myself completely to it. When we separated, I heard some whistles and applause. Wow, Jake said. What a start. I looked discreetly in Tyler's direction and saw he had clenched fists, his jaw locked. He was clearly furious. The game continued, and the tasks became increasingly daring. I kissed 2 more guys, danced sensually with one of the girls, and even took a dive in just my bikini, which didn't cover much anyway. Tyler was getting more and more agitated. He drank more than usual, spoke louder, and I could see he was at his limit. That's when the bottle stopped on me again. Truth or dare? Jess asked, who had joined the group. Dare, I replied without hesitation. Jess smiled mischievously. I dare you to skinny dip. The entire group fell silent. It was a daring challenge, even by the party's standards. Seriously? I asked, laughing. Seriously, Jess confirmed. But only if you want to, of course. I looked around. Everyone was staring at me, waiting for my answer. I looked in Tyler's direction and saw he was practically drooling, waiting to see what I was going to do. Okay, I said, standing up. But you can't record. We promise, Marcus said. I moved away from the group a bit, toward the darker part of the pool. Slowly, I untied the top of my bikini and threw it on the ground. Then, I took off the bottom part too. The silence was total. Even the music seemed to have gotten quieter. I was completely naked in front of everyone, and for the first time in my life, I didn't feel shame. I felt power. I dove into the pool and swam to the other side. When I emerged, shaking my hair, I heard an explosion of screams and applause. I got out of the water slowly, grabbing a towel that was on a nearby chair. My God, someone whispered. That was incredible, said another. Tyler was standing a few meters away, completely hypnotized. His eyes traveled over my body even with the towel, and I could see he was completely lost. Satisfied? I asked, smiling at the group. More than satisfied, Jake replied. I went back to the circle and put the bikini back on, but the atmosphere had completely changed. Everyone looked at me differently now. More respectfully, more admiringly. Your turn, I said to Jess, spinning the bottle. But before she could do anything, Tyler appeared out of nowhere. We need to talk, he said, pulling me by the arm. Hey, man, Marcus said, standing up. Leave her alone. This is none of your business, Tyler retorted. It's okay, I said, raising my hand. I'll talk to him. I walked away from the group with Tyler, who was clearly altered. What the hell do you think you're doing? He asked as soon as we were alone. Having fun, I replied calmly. That wasn't fun. That was exhibitionism. So what? What's the problem? The problem is you're not like this. How do you know who I am? Do you really know me? Tyler ran his hands through his hair, frustrated. You never did anything like that with me. You were never this free, because you didn't deserve to see this side of me, I replied without hesitation. What side? The slutty side? The phrase came out of his mouth before he could stop it. As soon as he said it, I saw he immediately regretted it. Sorry, he said quickly. I didn't mean to say that. But it was too late. Oh, so now I'm a slut for feeling free? For having fun? For doing what I want with my body? No, that's not it. That's exactly it. You can't accept that I'm happy without you, that I'm confident without you, that I'm sexy without you. Tyler was speechless. You know what your problem is, Tyler. You want a submissive girlfriend who depends on you, who hides behind you. But when she discovers she can be more, you can't handle it. I can handle it, he said desperately. You can't. And you know how I know? Because you just called me a slut for doing exactly what you always wanted me to do. Tyler tried to touch me, but I pulled away. No, I said firmly. You lost the right to touch me. You lost the right to have any opinion about what I do. I still love you, he said. And for the first time that night, his voice sounded vulnerable. No, I replied. You love the idea of possessing me, but I'm not your property. I never was. I went back to the group, leaving Tyler alone. When I sat in the circle again, everyone looked at me with admiration. Everything okay? Marcus asked. Perfect, I replied, smiling. And it was true. I felt perfect, free, powerful. And Tyler could cry in his corner because I was no longer his problem. The rest of the night was a succession of moments I knew I would remember forever. After my argument with Tyler, it was as if something had been liberated inside me. I was completely uninhibited, doing things I would never have had the courage to do before. Tyler continued roaming the party, but now with a different posture. He was no longer irritated or possessive. He was defeated. I could see in his eyes that he had understood he had completely lost any chance with me. Are you okay? Jess asked, approaching me. I've never been better, I replied. And it was true. That dive was epic, she said, laughing. You became a legend today. Well, you challenged me. I didn't think you'd go for it. I didn't think so either, I admitted. But it was liberating. We both laughed. And I felt like I had crossed an invisible line. The insecure girl who had arrived at the party a few hours ago no longer existed. In her place, there was a confident woman who knew exactly what she wanted. You know what? Jess said. That bikini was the best thing I ever gave you. I completely agree. The party started winding down around 2 in the morning. Some people had already left. Others were starting to say goodbye. I was sitting in an armchair near the pool talking to Marcus when Tyler approached once more. "Can I talk to you?" he asked, but this time his voice was different. There was no more arrogance or possessiveness, just sadness. I looked at Marcus, who understood the message and discreetly walked away. "What do you want, Tyler?" I asked, tired. He sat on the pool's edge in front of me. "I want to apologize." "For what? For calling me a slut?" "For everything," he said, running his hands over his face. "For making you feel like you weren't enough. For leaving you. For being an asshole." I didn't respond. I just waited for him to continue. "I see now that you were always incredible," he continued. I was just too blind to notice. "Tyler." "No," he interrupted me. "Let me finish. I lost the most incredible woman I ever knew because I was a coward. Because I couldn't deal with the fact that you were better than me." "You didn't lose," I said calmly. "You chose to throw it away." "I know, and I'm going to regret this for the rest of my life." We were silent for a moment. I could hear the low music in the background, the sound of people talking, the noise of the pool water. "I don't want you to regret it," I finally said. "I want you to be happy." "How can I be happy knowing I destroyed the best thing that happened in my life?" "By learning from mistakes," I replied. "And treating the next girl better than you treated me." Tyler looked at me with teary eyes. "There won't be a next girl. Not like you." "Yes, there will," I said, lightly touching his hand. "There will be. And when there is, you'll remember this night, and you'll treat her like she deserves to be treated." "I still love you," he said again. "I know," I replied. "But sometimes love isn't enough. Sometimes we hurt the people we love so much that there's no going back." Tyler lowered his head, defeated. "You're right. I forgive you," I said, surprising myself. "Not because you deserve it, but because I deserve peace." He looked at me with surprise. "Thank you. But that doesn't change anything," I continued. "We're not getting back together. Never." "I know," he said, his voice almost a whisper. He got up and stood in front of me for a moment. "I hope you're very happy," he said. "You deserve it." "I know I deserve it," I replied, smiling. Tyler walked away, and I knew it was the last time we would have a conversation like that. He had finally understood that he had lost any chance with me, and I had finally completely freed myself from him. Marcus came back and sat beside me. "Everything okay?" he asked. "Perfect," I replied, leaning against him. "Do you want me to take you home?" he asked. "In a little while," I replied. I want to enjoy it a little more." We sat there, looking at the stars reflected in the pool water. I felt complete, fulfilled, as if I had finally found who I really was. "You know," I said to Marcus, "I think this was the best night of my life." "Why?" he asked. "Because it was the first night I was completely myself." Marcus smiled and pulled me closer. "Here's to more nights like this." "Here's to that," I agreed. And deep down, I knew that night had changed everything. Not just in my relationship with Tyler, but in my relationship with myself. I had discovered a version of me I didn't know existed. A confident, sexy, powerful version. And I would never go back to being the insecure girl I had been before. The following week, the entire school was talking about the party. I could feel the stares when I walked through the hallways, heard the whispers when I entered the classroom, noticed the conversations that stopped when I approached. But this time it was different. They weren't looks of pity or whispers of disdain. They were looks of admiration, whispers of envy, conversations about how I had changed. "You became a legend," Jess said, approaching my locker on Monday morning. "That's an exaggeration," I replied, laughing. "It's not an exaggeration. Everyone is talking about you, about how you killed it at the party." "And Tyler?" "Tyler is devastated. Hasn't talked to anyone since Saturday, and Madison, well, she's spreading around that you're a desperate slut." "Let her talk," I said, shrugging. "Opinions from people who don't know me don't affect me." "You really have changed," Jess said, staring at me. "I didn't change," I corrected. "I just stopped hiding." The first class was strange. I could feel everyone looking at me, but instead of shrinking in my chair like I would have done before, I sat up straight, with my head held high. I was wearing a slightly more revealing blouse than usual, a slightly shorter skirt, and I felt incredible. Tyler was sitting a few rows behind me, and I could feel his gaze on my back. But I didn't turn around once. He no longer existed to me. At break, Marcus approached. "Hi," he said, smiling. "Hi," I replied, returning the smile. "How are you dealing with all this attention?" "Well," I said. "Actually, I'm enjoying it." Marcus laughed. "You deserve it." Saturday was... wow. It was liberating, I admitted. We were talking when Tyler appeared. He looked terrible, with deep dark circles and a defeated expression I had never seen on him. "Hi," he said quietly. "Hi," I replied, without much enthusiasm. Marcus tensed beside me, clearly ready to defend me if necessary. "I just wanted, I don't know, to talk to you," Tyler said. "We already talked," I replied. "Saturday night." "I know, but—" "Tyler," I interrupted him, "we have nothing more to talk about. You made your choices. I made mine. But I still—" "No," I said firmly. "Stop. You're just humiliating yourself." Tyler looked at Marcus, then at me, and finally understood that he no longer had space in my life. "Okay," he said quietly. "Sorry for bothering you." He walked away, and I felt nothing. Not anger, not sadness, not satisfaction. Tyler simply no longer provoked any emotion in me. "You're incredible," Marcus said. "The way you handled that." "It's the way I should have handled it a long time ago," I replied. The following days were a roller coaster of emotions. I received messages from guys who had never paid attention to me before, was invited to parties I had never been invited to, and felt an attention I had never experienced. On the first weekend after the party, I went to a nightclub with Jess's older friends. It was a place I would never have had the courage to go before, but now I felt confident enough for anywhere. I wore a super tight and short black dress, high heels, and did my makeup more dramatically. When I looked at myself in the mirror before leaving, I barely recognized the girl reflected. It was as if I had become a completely different person. At the nightclub, I danced like I had never danced, drank more than I should have, and flirted with several older men. It was an addictive sensation, this power of seduction I had discovered. One guy in particular caught my attention. He must have been around 25. Tall, dark, with that mysterious air that attracted me. He watched me all night, and when he finally approached, my heart raced. "Can I buy you a drink?" he asked with a hoarse voice that made me shiver. "You can," I replied, smiling provocatively. "What's your name?" "Depends," I said, getting closer to him. "Why do you want to know?" He smiled. "Because I want to know what to scream when—" "When what?" I asked, playing dumb. "When you drive me crazy," he completed. It was an obvious pickup line, but it worked. I spent the rest of the night dancing with him, letting his hands explore my body over my clothes, feeling his breath on my neck. "Come with me," he whispered in my ear at one point. "Where?" "My apartment is close by." For a moment I considered the possibility. It would be the most daring thing I had ever done, but something inside me said it wasn't time yet. "Not today," I replied, "but maybe another time." He seemed disappointed, but respected my decision. "Can I have your number?" "No," I said, smiling, "but if it's destiny, we'll meet again." I left the nightclub feeling powerful. I had an older man completely interested in me, and had enough control not to do anything hasty. On the way home, I thought about how my life had changed in just 1 week. The girl who had arrived at Jess's party afraid to meet her ex no longer existed. In her place, there was a woman who knew exactly what she wanted and how to get it. When I got home, my mother was waiting for me awake. "How was the night?" she asked. "Incredible," I replied, and it was true. "You've been different lately," she observed. "Different how?" "More confident. More adult." "Maybe it's because I finally discovered who I am," I said. My mother smiled. "And who are you?" "Someone who doesn't hide anymore," I replied. "Someone who isn't afraid to be who they really are." "I'm proud of you," she said. "I'm proud of myself too," I admitted. And it was true. For the first time in my life, I was genuinely proud of who I was. Not because someone validated me, but because I had validated myself. At school on Monday, the transformation was complete. I was no longer Tyler's ex-girlfriend. I was me. And that was more than enough. Tyler tried to approach a few more times over the following weeks, but I always maintained the same posture, polite but firm. He was no longer part of my life, and I had no interest in changing that. Marcus and I started getting to know each other better. He was kind, funny, and treated me like I deserved to be treated. It wasn't love yet, but it was something good, something healthy. "You know that half the world is in love with you now, right?" he said one day, while we were having lunch together. "Half the world?" I asked, laughing. "Okay, half the male school," he corrected. "And you? Are you in love with me?" Marcus got serious for a moment. "I'm falling in love," he admitted. "But I know you're still discovering yourself, so I'm not in a hurry." That was exactly what I needed to hear. Someone who respected me, who understood I was in a process of transformation. "Thank you," I said, touching his hand. "For what?" "For giving me time, for respecting me." It's the least you deserve. And in that moment, looking into his eyes, I knew I was on the right path. Not just in choosing partners, but in life in general. The insecure girl who hid behind loose clothes and forced smiles had given way to a confident woman who knew her worth. And that, more than any revenge against Tyler, was the greatest victory I could have achieved. A few weeks later, I found out Tyler was trying to win Madison back, but she didn't want anything to do with him anymore. Apparently, the humiliation of being left at a party because of his ex had been too much for her. I felt sorry for him, but not enough to really care. Tyler was the past. I was present and future. And the future had never seemed so bright. At graduation, months later, I was radiant. I wore a dress that highlighted every curve of my body, was accompanied by Marcus, and felt like I could conquer the world. Tyler was there, alone, watching me from afar with an expression that mixed regret and admiration. But his looks no longer affected me. He was just another face in the crowd. "Ready for college?" Marcus asked, pulling me to dance. "More than ready," I replied. "Ready for whatever comes." And while we danced, I thought about the neon green bikini that had changed my life. Not because it was provocative or sexy, but because it had given me the courage to be who I really was. Sometimes all we need is a little push to discover our true power. Mine came in the form of a joke gift from my best friend, and I would never be the same.